Hello beautiful people, and welcome once again to Gypsy Soul Creations. So we're going to take a step back for a quick minute. I had a request from someone to ask me to step it back and really explain all the little details for a true beginner jumping into pyrography. So the people who really know nothing, which was me when I started this just about a month or so ago. So a month and a half ago. So I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to go over some of the tools and some of the basics, really. So, okay, there are there are several different types of guns or pens or burners, whatever you prefer to call them. This is one kind, and I think we could have a pretty good look at that. And for this pen in particular, I got a whole kit, and there is many different tips. Can you see all of the different tips that will give you different techniques you can use for shading, for line work that came with this kit. Maybe you can see it a little bit better if I opened it up. Try not to drop them, but there we go. See the real life strategies, right? So anyway, there's some of those. Also all different types of tips. Some you could use for soldering with this pen. Some you could use for wood burning. You could do many different things with this. Different tips, and also the tracing paper, the carbon tracing paper, comes with a lot of the kits that you get. So you might get a piece, you might get two, you can kind of reuse some of this stuff. Again, I am diving into the beginning. I use this, and I'm just to refresh your memory, do not press too hard when you are using this kind of paper and putting a stencil on top of it to trace it out on your wood, because you cannot erase that. So I personally am starting to jump into using just sketching out with a pencil so that I can erase when I'm done. So for those of you who don't know what this paper looks like, again, I recommend highly that you tape it to your piece of wood, leather, whatever it is that you are going to be burning on, that you tape it down and then tape the actual stencil on top of it, so that when you're spinning it around to try to reach it correctly while you're drawing it out, it doesn't slide and move and mess up your design, because that's no fun. So also you could get like plastic type of stencils, things that you can, lay on your wood, you can trace out. There are all different types of techniques and different types of things that you could use. You could print something out from your computer on a piece of paper. You could take a photograph, and then I highly recommend transferring it into black and white. Printing that out on a piece of paper, it's easier to look at a black and white when you're doing a burning and follow the shading from that. And then you would just kind of sketch out the lines that really need to be defined there, and leave the rest up to the shading. So there are just a few of those tools to use for this burner. This, when you plug it in, it gets pretty hot. You can set the temperature there. I don't know how well you can, not real well, that you can see the temperature gauge there, but you can set it. This one particular goes up to about 400 degrees. And, oh my goodness. Okay. It goes up to about 400 degrees. We're just going to stop that, cut it out, and start again. Okay, so this pen here goes up to about 400 degrees. And that's great for burning. However, when you want to change out the tip, it's good to find a tip that you can use universally for a lot of things, because changing these out, you have to unplug it, turn it off, unplug it, wait for it to cool down to unscrew these tips and be able to screw in a new one. So it does take a little time when you're going back and forth and switching from tip to tip with this gun. With this pen. So that is just a few little tidbits on that one. Now on this one that I have preferred to use lately, I really did fall in love with this. This is the Walnut Hollow. Let me show you here. It's just a tiny little machine. Walnut Hollow Creative, it's called. And it's got the little knobs right there. Now this one, instead of saying 400 degrees, it goes from 1 to 10. And I usually keep my setting at about a 4 for most of the wood that I'm personally burning on. I've hit some pieces of cedar that have been really hard, that I've had to turn it up a little bit. And then for really light shading, I've turned it down just a little bit. But for the majority, I stay right around a 4. Maybe go down to a 3.5, maybe go up to a 5, but that's the general gist of it. So this nifty little machine right here that I love plugs right into the wall, and then your pen right here connected to it. And when it has a tip in there, it has this little holder. So the tip, see how I can hold this here to show you guys, really just sets right in there. Of course it stays up when it's sitting on the table, but it sets right in there and it holds the pen when it's hot. The tip is hot as you're moving things around, as you're getting your workspace ready. So that's just a nifty little feature, and when you're done and you don't want it there anymore, you just pull it out to pack it away. So that's that. Now the tips for this particular one are easily changeable. When you are wanting to change out your tip, you simply just turn the dial to off, and you don't have to wait for these ones to cool down. You can change them out very quickly, although they cool very quickly and they heat up very quickly, which is a huge bonus. But this machine comes with these little tweezers right here, and you just kind of grab right a hold of the tip and slide the tip out, and voila, you're done. It's out. So it is really that simple. You can see the little plug there on the end of the tip. This one's not hot, so yes, I can touch it. I didn't have it turned on this whole time. So when you want to change them out, then you grab a hold of it. There's a tiny little groove in the side, and when you look inside the pen, there is, I'm sure you cannot see it, but there are 2 little holes in there and a little groove so that you know exactly how it goes. So it simply pushes in there, that easy, voila. Turn the machine on, and in seconds, it is heated up. So this, again, my new favorite machine, and this particular one comes with 4 tips. So we have, it's very weird to do this backwards in the camera, right? So this is one of my favorite tips. You can use the point of it, kind of hold it sideways, and you can see how pointed that is. You can use the, point of it when you want to touch, do a little polka dots or even very delicate lines, and then you turn it over this way, and see how that angle is there? When you lay it up against the wood and just slide and pull, it offers beautiful shading. So that can be used for many different things depending on how you want to hold it. The fine, very fine, definite lines, the nice shading. This tip also is quite similar. However, it's a little more rounded than the other one. Let's see. That one's got a little more round tip to it, to the edge. So you can't really you could still lay it sideways and get some pretty fine lines. It is slightly angled. You can see that angle there. So you have to make sure if you're doing it, working from the side and trying to do lines, that you pay attention to how it is going to be slightly rounded. Again, this one is a lot more pointed at the tip for the dots, and it is angled in a different direction, so you can lay it that way or that way and just get, to me, a much smoother shading area and a much smoother line than the round one. Also, we have the ballpoint. Hold it up against there. Now it's probably a little hard to see, but this one has a ballpoint, just like a ballpoint pen. You can put it on, you could do circles, you can write with it, you could do different techniques with a ballpoint pen. I use this one a little bit, but not quite as much as the other. And then this is my other favorite. So we have this very pointed one that's my favorite, and then this one is very universal. You can see it's got a roundedness to it, but when you lay it flat on the wood and pull, you can make very fine, very detailed lines, or you can lay it sideways slightly and put the tip down and pull that way, and it adds a beautiful shading technique. And you can add a lot of depth with that one. So again, these two, there they go on the floor. These two, definitely my favorites. Personally, yes, I'm trying to make this so much easier for you guys to follow here. These two are my definite favorites. So, but everybody has their own particular preference on what they like to do. So those are the basics of the pens that I personally use, the tips, how to change the tips out. Again, sketching, if you don't want to use a tracing paper, a simple pencil and eraser can be your best friend. So those are the basic tool techniques. Make sure you always sand your wood so that it's nice and smooth. I didn't do that on my first 3 projects, and I definitely understand why they say sand. So the next ones that will be coming up will definitely be done on sanded wood, done on smoother wood, and you will see the difference in those. So, okay, I'm going to jump ahead, get set up, get warmed up, and then I'll just show you some of the shading and line work on the actual wood, so stay tuned. Alright, we're going to jump right in using the pointed flat tip. If you just touch the very tip of it, you can make polka dots. You can move it around in a tiny little circular motion to make the tiniest little dots. Just a little slide sideways, and you can make very, very fine lines for very detailed work that you're jumping into. Works great for, say, feathers or really different detailed lining. If you kind of using just the tip and swiping forward, you can get a very soft feathered line. Sorry, the camera, sometimes when I'm moving it around, it takes a minute to focus. Laying the tip kind of flat and just pulling, just kind of dragging. This is like a nice soft shaded look. If you want to let it sit there for a second, you can get kind of the triangular effect, and then pulling away just kind of shades and softens. So going over these fine lines I just made, just kind of, you can see how it just kind of softens up that whole area, adding a little more shade to it. Again, if you have fine lines, if you have a defined line, however you want. I'm using the side of this edge now and kind of laying the long part of the edge on there and pulling away in a different direction. Still adds the softness to your piece, a softness to the shading. So if you just kind of use the edge of that and pull straight down, you can add a soft shaded line and then pull away from that. Gives it a really nice, just a really nice texture to it without being like the harsh line. So again, in my other pieces, I always say don't go in and make a definite outline of your piece first. Go in and shade those lines in so it gives it more depth and more texture. So now changing out the tip, turn your machine off. These are the nifty little pliers that come with this burner, and you just simply pull straight out of the machine and it pulls it right out. So when you want to switch out your tip, you could just set them aside to cool. You're switching out your tip. It just has this little plug right here and a little indent in the side. And if you can kind of see, you can't see real well, but there's 2 little holes in there. You just line them up and push it in, and you're ready to go. Turn your machine back on, and it really truly only takes a few seconds to heat up. So this is the universal tip that I like to use for a lot of things. Just pulling straight down. Again, you can make nice fine lines. You can do it quickly for a very subtle line. You can move your hand a little bit slower and get a stronger burn for more definite lines. You can, for different shading techniques, you can just crisscross over, do a straight line down and then cross over. You can do X's. A lot of times when people are doing animals and they're doing the fur, this is what they'll do. They'll go back and forth and make like little tiny soft X's and keep building up on that to add the look of the fur, the definition, the shading technique to it. So you can see that right there. So these are just some different ways that you can shade depending on if you're doing portraits, if you're doing animals, if you're doing landscapings. So this is just kind of a pull, doing straight lines right next to each other is also another way of doing it. Pulling out in the opposite direction. You could do them vertical, you can do them horizontal. It all just adds soft shading. Always be sure not to hold too long or press too hard. You can do more of a dotted effect, even not necessarily using the ballpoint pen, but using this universal tip. You can do a lot of just touching quickly and it adds more of a polka dotted shaded effect. When you're looking close up to these pieces, you see this detail, but from far away, it just looks beautiful and shaded. So now practicing on my lettering for the first time, I just sketched it out with a pencil, and I'm going to kind of go over this lightly to see how it's going to burn. Now I did sand this piece, but it's not the smoother side. I'm working on the side that still probably could have been sanded a little bit more because of the texture of this wood. So as I'm going across, doing lettering, it would have been different if I was doing more of a textured picture. But doing the lettering, as I'm pulling across, I'm quickly realizing that it's kind of pulling my pen around a little bit, and it's kind of, rippling across the texture of the wood. So I'm trying to press very, very lightly, a very light pull so that it doesn't grab my pen all over the place. And because of that, I'm going to go back over a couple of times to layer this burn, because I want it to be darker, but I don't want to have to press so hard that it's pulling my pen everywhere. Especially going down across the grain, you really feel that ripple. You really notice that ripple in it. So again, I'm going to go over it a couple of times to darken it up, and then we'll jump into the shading. So guys, always when you watch my videos, if there's some questions you have or something that you want me to jump into, whether it's a certain technique, a certain shading, or even a certain piece that you want me to dive into, write in the comments below. I'm always open to any comments, any suggestions, and as a beginner myself, I am curious to dive into all kinds of new things, so I would love to hear your suggestions on that. Also, if you want to see the new videos that I have come out every week, usually on a Thursday, sometimes I throw extra ones in, subscribe to my YouTube channel and you will always catch those new videos that are coming out. So you'll be up on the beginner's techniques, the beginner's line work and shading work, and just, all kinds of different things. And I might jump into some other creations that aren't even wood burning. You never know what might come out of me going on your suggestions. So here you can see I have layered this over a couple of times. I've darkened it up. The first layer is a lot lighter. You can see me going over it to truly darken it up to get a really nice burn before I jump into a little shading, because it just looks, when I'm finished, a little flat. So I tried to add a little shading to just give it a slight bit of dimension to it. And I will switch back over to the pointed flatter tip to add that shading in. So I hope you guys get something out of these videos. If I'm going too fast, if I'm not touching on the right things, comment it below, guys, and let me know how I can tweak my videos, what I can teach you, and how I can better serve you. I'm here to help you guys learn something. So with the flat tip, I just lightly kind of go over some of the letters in between some of you know, the rounded shapes, just to give it a little bit more dimension so it doesn't look too flat. So I hope in this video you guys learned something. Jump on over and subscribe to catch my next videos coming out. Comment below anything you want me to dive into. And I hope that you guys all know I'm here to serve you. Much love and appreciation always, guys. Great to have you jump on my videos. I look forward to seeing you on the next ones. Have a beautiful day.